Ever since we were at school, we've all known about space, that if we fly up from the surface of the Earth for a long time, we'll get into this dark and beautiful place, that spacecraft fly there, and that people have flown there more than once. But what if none of this is true? What if we've been lied to all the time and no one has ever been to space? First of all, I want to say that what I'm going to tell you about is just theories and assumptions. I'm not claiming anything 100%, but just sharing some interesting information with you. I'm sure many of you will like it. So many theorists believe that no one has ever been to space because it simply doesn't exist. This theory tends to be very closely intertwined with the Flat Earth Society. The theorists believe that Earth is actually a flat disk 24,854 miles in diameter with the North Pole at its center. To make it clearer in their view, the top of this Earth looks something like the emblem of the United Nations. By the way, according to the conspiracy theory, the UN specifically made such an emblem to secretly show the whole world what Earth really looks like. Antarctica in this theory doesn't exist, or rather it doesn't exist in the form that we know. According to this theory, Antarctica is a high ice belt along the edge of the disk which is carefully guarded so that no one can look to the edge of the Earth. Earth itself, in this theory, is covered by a huge dome. This is done so that those people who speculate about the absence of space couldn't check anything for themselves, so the truth will always remain a mystery. Gravity, according to theorists, does not exist, and the acceleration of freefall is explained by the fact that the flat disk is infinitely moving upwards.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff.
Theorists believe that the absence of space is known to all elites in the world, including both the rulers and their entourage, the bankers, and other richest people in the world. Also, pilots are involved in the conspiracy since they know the real location of the continents on the planet. Other people and organizations are also involved in the conspiracy. For example, NASA. We know that NASA is the world's premier space agency. NASA's been around for a long time. It was founded in 1958, and since then it's been able to perform many large-scale missions and operations. Or is it all wrong? People who are convinced that space doesn't exist are just as convinced that NASA's fake. Of course, such an agency exists, but in their opinion, it's not engaged in space exploration at all, but in the creation of space-related hoaxes. This is done in order to simply distribute budget extravagance among officials. Also, according to the theorists, it's NASA that creates all the space photographs. According to the theory, NASA employees conspired to draw all the cosmic bodies, the starry sky, and even pictures of Earth from space. The theory is that the amazing space pictures are nothing more than Photoshop or photos edited with other programs. As for rockets and spacecraft that are launched in space, the graphics can be mixed with reality. Theorists believe that footage of spacecraft entering orbit is in editing, and if such footage is not shown to the public, then there's no need for editing. In their opinion, no rocket leaves Earth because after some time after launch, a rocket explodes somewhere in the atmosphere. And the way this rocket is shown already in space is again in editing. Let's assume that's the case. Let's assume that rockets really don't leave Earth and that NASA employees are using Photoshop trying to provide the naive inhabitants of Earth with new pictures of our planet and more. But what about the ISS? I mean, we all know about this incredible space station. It hangs in our orbit, revolves around Earth, and always has astronauts on it doing space research. It turns out that someone's been in space and is still there, isn't it? Proponents of the theory that there is no space are sure that this is not true. In their opinion, all the ISS astronauts, like all astronauts in general, are actors who only create the illusion that space exists. They believe that all reports and other videos from the ISS are filmed on Earth. Most likely a green screen is used for this purpose. Actors are filmed on its background pretending to be astronauts, and then the interiors of the ISS are finished on the computer, and it seems as if this was filmed from space. This is indicated by such facts as periodic inconsistencies in the editing, blurred ropes on which the actors hang, imitating weightlessness, complete immobility of objects in the background, and so on. There's another option to deceive the public: to film the same thing, but in conditions of real weightlessness on board an airplane. For example, this is how the Ilyushin IL-76 works. The plane recruits a crew of willing tourists, flies horizontally, then gains altitude along the trajectory of a parabola, and when reaching the upper point of the parabola, the gravitational and inertial forces are equalized and weightlessness occurs. Theorists believe that not only tourists but also actors who regularly make staged footage are allowed on board the plane. As for the spacewalk, theorists believe that this footage is also staged and is filmed in a pool on Earth, the same place where astronauts train allegedly for the real spacewalk. In general, the version with the non-existent ISS is still very interesting, but still it can be refuted. First of all, the ISS is visible from Earth. The station's only 248 miles from Earth, so it can easily be seen with binoculars. Second, officially, the ISS is a project involving 14 countries. Since that time, the ISS has been visited by several hundred people from different countries and even industries. It's hard to believe that NASA has managed to bribe, intimidate, or deceive so many people. Third, the conversations of the ISS astronauts via radio were repeatedly picked up by amateur radio operators. Finally, fourth, the artificial weightlessness created in dive planes lasts only a couple of tens of seconds, which is clearly not enough to create long staged videos. Plus, the airplanes have less space than the ISS. Despite this evidence, which still confirms the presence of the ISS in space, the theorists are adamant. They're convinced that we're all being deceived anyway, and the most important deception related to space, in their opinion, happened in 1969. You may recall that was the year that the first landing of humans on the moon took place. The Apollo 11 spacecraft took them there. It was one of the major events in the history of mankind. However, many people are convinced that there was no moon landing. Some of them believe that this is because there's no such thing as space, while others point out that the landing was faked for other reasons. This theory is one of the most famous conspiracy theories. What's the gist of the theory? It's believed that the entire process was filmed in studios. According to one version, the process was directed by Stanley Kubrick himself, a famous director, author of many iconic films. Theorists believe that his magnum opus was the masterful filming of the moon landing. Many skeptics believe that the director made several mistakes, and now anyone can expose his deception. For example, they point out that in the footage from the moon, objects are in the shadows, which means that somewhere behind the scenes, lighting devices are hidden. After all, in real space, it should have been different. The sun is the only possible source of light in photos from the lunar surface, so everything in the shadows should be completely black. They also note that there was not a single star in the sky in the footage. In none of the photos or videos of the crew landing, we don't see stars. Although, in the absence of an atmosphere, they should shine even brighter than on Earth. The theorists are confident that this indicates that the filming was done in the studio. It's also noted that the US flag installed on the moon fluttered as if in the wind, which it couldn't in real space because there's no air in a vacuum. In addition, theorists believe that the lunar module must have left an impact crater in the loose lunar soil during landing, but the photo doesn't show any crater under the spacecraft. But that's not all there is to do with the moon. Some people are not only convinced that Americans have never been to the moon, but also that the moon itself doesn't exist, because there's no space either. The question arises, what do we see in the sky every night? After all, in order to see the moon, one doesn't need any devices. It's enough just to look up to the sky and see if the natural satellite exists after all. Theorists have an explanation. They believe that there is no moon. There's only a flat projection or hologram which makes the presence of the moon seem. And this projection, in their opinion, is quite primitive, and the deception can be exposed if you want. So there are several videos on the internet that shows some waves and stripes running over the moon. Roughly the same thing works with other hologram surfaces that are created by computer or projection. Also, proponents of the moon as a hologram believe that it's no accident that the moon is always turned only one way toward us. In their opinion, the creators simply didn't have time to design a high-quality 3D projection. The same is true for other objects observable in the sky. For example, stars. Proponents of the theory of the absence of space believe that the starry sky is as much a hologram as the moon. If Earth rotates on its axis all the time, and even around the sun, then why do we see the same stars above our heads on starry nights? After all, the Earth turns to them from different sides, besides rotating around the sun, and the stars stand as if they're in the same place. Doesn't this seem absurd? Theorists ask this question, and it seems to them that it's strange. They explain such strangeness by the fact that the stars in the sky are a stationary holographic projection. Not only is there no stars and no moon, there are no planets. Theorists believe that the planets of the solar system are a common hoax. The most discussed planet in our system is Mars. The first expedition's in full swing, and it's planned to colonize Mars in a decade. After all, rovers have been exploring the planet for years and regularly send images back to Earth. Most people think so, but not the proponents of the theory of the absence of space. In their opinion, the photos allegedly from Mars are actually taken on Earth, on Devon Island in Canada. Indeed, if we look at this island and its landscape and topography, we can hardly distinguish it from Mars. But this is not the only site for photographs. Finally, what about the main object of the solar system, the Sun? Proponents of the no space theory believe that the Sun doesn't exist either. More precisely, according to their version, what we call the Sun is several large luminaries fixed somewhere on a dome. It's these super powerful lights that heat and illuminate the Earth. The fact that there are several of them may be indicated by unusual phenomena. For example, a sundog, when we see several suns in the sky. Also, proponents of this theory believe that in pop culture, there are many references to the fact that our sun is not real, and that in fact Earth is illuminated by lanterns. For example, the iconic movie The Truman Show has a scene where a lantern falls from the sky next to Jim Carrey's character. Theorists are sure that this is not just an ordinary scene in a movie, but a hint to the real structure of the world. That's all, guys. Do you believe that space doesn't exist? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.